Kathy. Happy Thursday. I hope you're doing great today. I'm doing really good, but I do have a tiny little headache. And it feels a little bit like I had a migraine on Monday, and I haven't had one in a long, long time. And it's a little migraine-y, but I'm hoping that it goes away. It was mild on Monday too, by the way. It wasn't a dark room, no sound, no sight one. It was a ice pack one, but it wasn't like the shut down everything one. So that's good. And this isn't either, although I did lower my screen brightness a little bit, so I think I'll be fine. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know. So everything's good. Despite a couple human things, but that's just being human, right? I'm gonna grab my other phone and just check and make sure that you guys can hear me. And then we're going to start talking about Annie E. Anderson Walker. So this one is not going to be a marathon. There's very little information that's known about Annie. There's no pictures of Annie. There's 3 pieces of her artwork that we can look at. That's it. There's just not a lot, but she's a very notable person, and we will learn why she is notable today. So, one second. I'm just going to look at my live. Here I am. Okay. Let's see. Are we up yet? What's going on? What's happening here? Hold on. I'm not seeing that I'm live right now. Hold on a second. Oh! Yes. There we are. Awesome. Welcome. Okay, let's do this. Let's talk about Annie. Let's talk about Annie. We're going to dive right in. In 1 second. In 1 second. I just want to set my phone up so I can see the chat. Should you guys say anything and I want to respond, I just like to make sure that that's available. So, Annie was somebody who I was trying to dig hard, and I did find some stuff. There's some good information in the description. There's links in the description, so have at it. But let's talk about her. And I really wish that I had more information on her, because to me, it just is so sad when there's so little information on somebody. So, especially somebody, of such importance in the history of art and in just our country and in civil rights. So we're going to read about her. I mean, you'll understand. You'll understand in a minute. Annie E. Walker. Annie E. Anderson Walker. Annie E. Anderson was her maiden name. She was born October 5th, 1855, and she died on June 9th, 1929. She was an African-American artist known for her portraits and her work in pastels, and for being one of the first American women to complete an institutional art education in the United States and exhibit at a Paris Salon. I think she was the first African-American woman to complete an institutional art education. That's what I think. I'm not sure about that, but that's what I think. And that's what I'm going with. today. Maybe the first on record, maybe, you know, because I'm sure there was some that did not get a diploma or were not, you know, were like secretly taking classes. I'm sure there's stories like that all over the place. Maybe not all over the place, but I'm sure there are plenty of stories like those. At least I hope that there are. I think there are, but let's do this. Biography. She was born in Flatbush, New York on October 5th, 1855. Oh, let me just grab my mic. Make sure that you guys can hear me a little better. I'm a little far away from my mic. I'm still working on my little setup here, but okay, let's start again. Born in Flatbush, New York on October 5th, 1855, to Nancy Cassidy and Frances Anderson, Walker was the youngest of 5 children. She entered the teaching profession at an early age, teaching in Jacksonville, Florida, and Orrville, Alabama. She entered the teaching profession at an early age. I already read that part. After passing examinations before the Selma Board of Education, she was appointed a teacher in the Burwell Academy in Selma, where she taught for several years. In 1875, she married Selma lawyer Thomas Walker in Dallas, Alabama. In 1890, she moved to Washington, D.C. and began private lessons in drawing and painting. After a year of private lessons, Walker was admitted to the Corcoran School of Art, but was refused entry when it was discovered that she was black. When she appeared at the Corcoran, she was told by the admitting instructor that, quote, "The trustees have directed me to not admit colored people. If we had known that you were colored, the committee would not have examined your work." Disgusting. Walker was acquainted with the abolitionist Frederick Douglass. Friends in high places, right? Frederick Douglass was American social reformer, abolitionist, orator, writer, and statesman. He was the most important leader of the movement for African American civil rights in the entire 19th century. So, friends in high places. And he wrote a powerful appeal to the administration on her behalf, asking them to reconsider, quote, "reconsider this exclusion and admit Mrs. Walker to the Corcoran Gallery of Art, and thus remove a hardship and redress a grievous wrong imposed upon a person guilty of no crime and one in every way qualified to compete with others in the refining and nobling study of art." His appeal and others, however, drew no positive response, and her rejection was not reversed. That racism runs deep. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh my gosh. It's really horrifying. Within months of her rejection, I couldn't believe this when I first read it. And about reading these before I do a read for you guys, I have to vet everything. So, but I really like the first reaction. So it's kind of a catch-22. And she was somebody who was quite challenging to find a lot of information for. So I've fully saturated with this stuff, and it's still just, I mean, it's unbelievable. But those were the days, and that's why you can't find very many women and men of color who were artists when you look at the history of art in the 19th century. In the 19th century. It's very difficult. But we found her, so that's good. Within months of her rejection, and there's a silver lining here too. Within months of her rejection from the Corcoran Gallery of Art, Walker traveled to New York City, her home base, right, where she was born, to apply to the Cooper Union for advancement of science and art. Susan N. Carter, principal of the Women's Art School at the Cooper Union in 1892, related this about Walker. "A young colored woman came to the Cooper Union a few months ago. She was most ladylike and prepossessing in appearance. She brought a roll of drawings with her. on which she had been admitted to the art school of the Corcoran Gallery in Washington. When she presented herself at that school, she was refused a place there, solely on the grounds of her color. She showed me long letters from Frederick Douglass and others, protesting against such an injustice. But the decision against her was not changed. Knowing of the Cooper Institute, she came to New York to see about entering it. Recognizing the wrong done to her race in her exclusion from a school in the capital city of our country, 27 years after our war was over, I felt that honoring New York City, as well as the dear memory of Mr. Cooper, if I let her at once have a place in my own office, as the classrooms were full, till a vacancy should occur in a drawing classroom. This young colored girl is doing exceptionally well, and the kindness of her teacher and companions has helped to soothe the former grief. So she went to Cooper Union. Walker studied at Cooper Union from 1892 to 1895 and was a pupil of Thomas Eakins and John Henry Twatchman, who influenced Walker's luminous impressionistic approach. Upon Walker's graduation in 1895, Susan N. Carter detailed her success at the school. It may be remembered that 3 years ago, a colored woman from Washington, D.C. was admitted to the Women's Art School. Mrs. Annie E. A. Walker was her name. Coming to the Cooper Union, she was received here, and where Mr. Peter Cooper's free gift of instruction made no distinction of race or nationality. Mrs. Walker has been a very satisfactory scholar and has now graduated. She has earned and saved more than $600 since she entered the Cooper Union and will use this money for a year's study in Paris, after which she proposes to open a studio for portrait painting. The energy, ability, and fine character of this colored woman are very encouraging, showing her race's possibilities. $600 back then equates to around $24,000 now. So that's a very good savings that she's made from what I think probably from making art. I'm guessing she was probably doing portraits. But isn't it great? And we're gonna look at her diploma. We can see her diploma too. So I'll show it to you in a minute. I think I have the link up. Yeah, I do. I have it up. Okay. I have another website that has another really, really well done biography that has the third piece of artwork that we're going to look at today, and then also shows her diploma. So we'll look at that in a minute. After graduating in 1895, because we don't have much more to go here on Wikipedia. After graduating in 1895, Walker sailed to Paris in September, where she studied at the prestigious Académie Julienne, likely the first African-American woman to do so. The Académie Julienne was a private art school for painting and sculpture founded in Paris, France in 1867 by French painter and teacher Rodolphe Julien, 1839 to 1907. The school was active from 1868 through 1968. It remained famous for the number of and quality of artists. It remained famous for the number and quality of artists who attended during a great period of effervescence in the arts and in the early 20th century. After 1968, it integrated with the École Supérieure du Design, d'Art Graphique, Architecture, Interior, Pennigan. So that's a different school. ESAG. Okay. So that's great. She was honored by being chosen to exhibit her work at the 1896 Paris Salon, the official juried art exhibition of the Académie des Beaux-Arts in Paris. The work exhibited was a pastel drawing entitled La Parisienne, a portrait of a woman now in the Howard University collection. After her studies, Walker traveled to London, Switzerland, and Italy. Walker returned to the United States in December 1896, settling in Washington, D.C., She continued to paint and draw while balancing her responsibilities as the wife of a successful lawyer. However, 2 years after returning from Paris, Walker suffered a nervous breakdown, possibly due to the strain of societal pressure and expectations, and ceased her artistic work, remaining invalid and homebound until she died in 1929 in Washington, D.C. Although Walker's promising career was tragically short, she was noted especially for her pastels, which were compared to those of Alice Pike Barney and shown at Howard University. Art historian Tritobia Hayes Benjamin said Walker's, quote, tireless courage, determination, and persistence in becoming an artist in the face of racism and sexism. She describes Walker's work as academic in style and execution, and illustrates an active, intuitive ability and spirit, as well as a masterful control of the medium. Walker died on June 9th, 1929 at the age of 73, and was buried in Harmony Cemetery in Washington, D.C. So, like, sad ending. Sad ending. I don't have much to say about the sad ending, except it's just so sad. It doesn't sound like, from everything I've looked at and read, it sounds like there are no children that anyone knows about. We know who her husband was. We don't know anything about what their marriage was like. Her husband was, we will go through this. Hold on one second. I want to go here. Hold on. I'm going to grab a link. And we're going to look at it in 1 second, but first let's look at the artwork that we have available of hers. This was La Parisienne. Sorry about that horn. Sorry about somebody's car alarm is going off. So annoying. Okay. Oh, good, it's over. This is the picture that was at Paris Salon. And there's information about Paris Salon in the description of this video, and what it was, and the importance of it at the time. And then this is the other painting that we have of hers. So this one was the one I just showed you was the one that was shown at the Paris Salon. This one is dated like 1903, I think. 1903. Watercolor of a man in 16th century dress. But we have no context for this picture that I know of. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to click into this invaluable auction lot thing. Let's see what this says. Details. No. We don't have any details. Do we know what it sold for? View lot detail. No, I'm not going to do that. Okay, studies of a man in 16th century dress. 2, both signed, one dated possibly 3 or 7. Where's the other one? I only see one. Both watercolor, both 13.5 by 10.25 inches, one with a few spots of foxing. I don't know what foxing is, but that's okay. Are they prints? I can't imagine. Maybe, if they have 2. No, it doesn't say. Okay. So, back here. So let's look at, that was all we had on Wikipedia. And that's not a lot. You know, that's really not a lot. We have some references. You can go to Wikipedia, check out the references if you want to get more information. See if you can dig a little deeper on her. She was, the only exhibition she did was the Paris Salon. I mean, you know, it's just, it's kind of tragic, you know, but understandable, you know, that the pressure was on her, and that life just got to be too much probably for her. Yeah. Understandable, right? All right, here's a really great little bio about her. And these are few and far between. They're not easy to find. So the link is in the description. This is the seedsoftheleague.org page, like blog post. And this woman, Vanessa Hernandez, wrote it, and it's really good. Really, really good. Okay, so an intuitive youth. There seems to be... Okay, I'm going to start reading just from Such Was the Case, because this gives us more like prismatic view of her life than the article, the Wikipedia article. And I think, I think we want that, because there's just so little. The Wikipedia was, as good as it could get, but as good as Wikipedia can get, but this has a little bit more of the details that we want. So as artists and people who are into art and want to know more about that side of stuff. So let's read. For a black woman in the 19th century, there was rarely a time to, quote unquote, care about feeding the creative spirit, let alone have, quote unquote, a moment to sit down undisturbed to unravel her own private thoughts. This is in reference to something else earlier in the article, but so I didn't really need to read that, but let's go. Next paragraph. Such was the case of the artist Annie E. Anderson Walker, no relation to Alice Walker. Though able to study and travel in her youth, after a brief period of pure creative activity, Annie E. A. Walker had to see the immensity of her vision squeezed into the role of a wife of an important lawyer in Washington, D.C., overburdened by domestic duties and hosting social gatherings. I'm going to get my cushion for my chair. It's right here. 1 second. Okay, let's see here. All right, I need a little height on this. There we go. Okay, better. An intuitive youth. There seems to be a fog surrounding, there certainly does, surrounding the details of Annie's life as well as her death. There are no photographs, no mention of any children, and the latter years of her life were marked by a deteriorating emotional and mental state. Already, it's a lot more information, right? Born to Nancy Cassidy and Francis Anderson on October 5th, 1856, and raised in Brooklyn, New York, Annie Walker was the youngest of 5 children. So she had 4 siblings. Her father, Francis, is buried in Brooklyn in the historic and majestic Greenwood Cemetery. And here's a picture of Greenwood Cemetery. Annie's physical appearance can be gleaned from her passport application for her travels through Europe in 1895, retrieved from the Art Students League archives. And here is her diploma. I don't think this is her passport application, I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second, okay. District of Columbia, County of Washington, Annie E. A. Walker, Flatbush, New York. Okay, description of applicant. About 39 years. Was she 39? When she... I thought she was younger. When she went to Paris. Wait a minute. Guess not. Okay. Well, I had my time frame all wrong. That's okay. Let's go. 39 years old. Stature, 5 feet 3 inches. Forehead, medium. Eyes dark brown. Nose prominent. Mouth large. Chin prominent. Hair black. Complexion light brown. Face oval. We can glean, but we can only look at it subjectively because everybody's opinion is subjective anyway. So, you know what I mean? So there we go. Annie Walker's physical qualities are listing alongside one-word adjectives toward the bottom of the application. And then it rereads them. There is some confusion surrounding Annie's birthplace. According to several art historians, including Lisa E. Farrington and Tritobia Hayes Benjamin, Annie was born in Flatbush. Her childhood neighborhood, her passport application confirms this. Other sources claim an entirely different place of origin, Alabama. This includes the archives of Annie's alma mater, Cooper Union, as well as in an article published in April 1942 in The Crisis, a monthly publication founded by W.E.B. Du Bois in 1910. This makes me wonder if, like, there was a reason that she lied about one of them for her safety or for being able to be eligible for certain things. So that's my only add-on to that. Just speculation on why there may be two different opposing answers for where she was born. In this article titled "The American Negro as Craftsman and Artist," James V. Herring, original founder of the Department of Art at Howard University, briefly outlined Annie's life and work. Centered on the early years of Negro art, Herring, quote-unquote, Herring described Annie's artwork as, quote-unquote, strikingly personal and self-sustaining, indicative of an, quote, active, intuitive ability and spirit as well as discipline. Annie Walker began teaching at a young age, traveling to Jacksonville, Florida, as well as Orrville and Selma, Alabama, in order to do so. According to her obituary, after having passed exams held by the Selma Board of Education, Annie taught at the Burwell Academy in Selma for several years. While in Selma, Annie met Thomas Walker, born into slavery in 1850 in a river town called Cahaba. Thomas was emancipated at age 15. He went on to work for Union soldiers and apprenticed as a carpenter before going into law. They married on the 27th of May, 1875. In addition to being a great philanthropist, Thomas would be remembered as one of the wealthiest and most successful lawyers in Washington, D.C. And so I find it really interesting that we don't have more information on his wife. So I'm just going to real quick, I'm going to go into Wikipedia and look up, because I did not do this, look up Thomas Walker on the Wikipedia just for a real quick second, because I want to see. Thomas Walker, no, lawyer. Wikipedia. No, nothing. Okay. All right, well, that's that. If I find something, I will put it in the description of this video. But as it stands right now, I can't find it. I find it really hard to believe that there's no information about this guy and about his life, which will help us to, unpack her a little bit more. But the couple moved from Selma to Washington, D.C., where Annie began her artistic practice. In 1890, she took private lessons in drawing and painting, showing rapid progress after a year of tutelage. Shortly after, Annie applied to the Corcoran Gallery of Art. The exceptional quality of her work was immediately recognized. Corcoran admissions sent Annie a letter of acceptance. In spite of this, when she arrived, they immediately had a change of heart. Corcoran Gallery of Art. The Corcoran Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. was founded on the principle of encouraging American genius. This mission, however, did not extend to black women in 1891. Upon Annie's arrival for her first elementary class in drawing, the instructor's very words to her were as follows: "The trustees have directed me to not admit colored people. If we had known that you were colored, the committee would not have examined your work." Annie Walker did not let this unjust reaction hinder her artistic pursuits. Adamant and persistent, she sought the aid of then Minister to Haiti and esteemed abolitionist Frederick Douglass. On November 3, 1891, Douglas spoke on behalf of this very worthy and earnest art student. In a 3-page letter, its full contents are accessible in the Philip Butcher Papers archive at Columbia University. Douglas addressed the committee of the Corcoran Gallery of Art, pleading for an acknowledgement of Annie's initial acceptance to Corcoran and her total compliance with the admission procedure. Quote, unquote, her pictures were duly sent, received and acted upon. I was admitted that her work came up to the standard of excellence required, shown by the fact that a plain ticket of admission was sent to her by management. Douglas goes on to speak on the hypocrisy of this action, that a school existing in Washington, D.C., the freest capital of the freest nation on the globe, quote unquote, would reject Annie Walker upon so frail and unworthy a pretext as that of the tint of the skin. Quote unquote again. On page 2 of the letter, he refers to the abolition of slavery and how the nation vowed to no longer follow through with such prejudice. And this is his quote, "It cannot be that in this enlightened period of our national life, when the nation has cast off and put away the system of slavery, when organic law of the land has declared that there shall be no discrimination against citizens on account of face, color, or previous condition, when our national capital is becoming glorious at the center of science, art, and religion, it cannot be that the Corcoran Gallery of Art will, upon reflection, persist in the exclusion of a worthy woman from its benefits because God has given her a different color from that of others." This is one of the many cases of racial prejudice indicative of a much larger trend. By the mid-19th century, as slavery ended, African-American women artists faced escalating bigotry, economic hardship, and the reconciliation of their racial statutes with their new roles as free American women, quote-unquote free, or I don't know. You know the thing. Expounds art historian Lisa E. Farrington. Black women artists were not treated with respect, even when it was blatantly earned. Making one last plea to the Corcoran Admission Committee to reverse their decision, Douglas writes, "I would earnestly but most respectfully plead, in the hope that upon reflection you may reconsider this exclusion and admit Mrs. Walker to the Corcoran School of Art, and thus remove hardship and redress a grievous wrong imposed upon a person guilty of no crime and one every way qualified." Okay, what is this letter? Robert Douglas. "A colored servant with a broom or bucket would not disturb the nerves of any earnest white student. Why should a colored woman with a brush and an easel disturb any such persons?" Hoping that... So, he's like, good for him. Guys, you know... Hoping that you will, upon reflection, reconsider your former decision and admit Mrs. Walker. I am, gentlemen, most respectfully yours, Frederick Douglass. A colored servant with a broom or bucket would not disturb the nerves of any earnest white student. Why should a colored woman with a brush and easel disturb any such persons? He's a poet, and that's a good little needle. Like, guys, really? Really? Okay. Despite having the representation and support of a most distinguished figure, the Corcoran Gallery of Art refused to cede. This to me is just like, wow. Yeah, you're never gonna be able to erase that, you know? Like, that is your history, and you're gonna have to live with that. I've never heard this before, and it's kind of like, wow. But you know, this kind of stuff all the time happened. I'm just glad that we're getting to shed some light on it here and like actually read an actual story of an actual person who had to go through this. Or who didn't have to go through it, but she did go through it. Instead of giving into discouragement, Annie looked to her home for answers, New York City. The Art Students League of New York. Okay, did we read about this in Wikipedia? Because I don't think we did. You know, I don't remember. Sometimes when I'm reading, I don't remember certain things, so another good reason to read things more than once. But I don't think that this, at least if this was mentioned in Wikipedia, I think they talk more about it here. A group of young student artists, comprised of women and men eager to study the human form, founded the Art Students League in 1875. A safe haven for those who had been cast off, the Art Students League of New York became a welcome home for wandering travelers. Temporarily taking leave of Washington, D.C., Annie sought instruction at the Art Students League in 1891. At the time of Annie's attendance, League classes were being held in a factory building in the Flatiron District between 3rd and Lexington Avenue, previously in use by a piano manufacturer. And here's the building. Cool, right? I love that, actually. It's a beautiful picture. And I feel so sad that we don't have a picture of Annie to draw, you know? Or that even like we have these 3 pieces of art. I'm going to show you the 3rd one in a minute, but you know, it's not a lot to go on. Maybe we'll draw this. Maybe that's what we'll do. Annie Walker participated in 2. I was planning on doing the portrait, but the La Persienne, but I don't think so. Annie Walker participated in 2 classes between 1891 and 1894. The first, what seems to have been an 8-day workshop in February 1891. The second, most likely a class for a period of 6 months, from December 1893 to May 1894. This is from the Washington Post, January 11, 1948. And here's a picture of the third painting that we have. Portrait or drawing. Portrait drawing of a woman by Annie Walker, also at Howard. This is also at Howard University. A Shining Thread of Hope, The History of Black Women in America, includes certain details regarding the restrictions placed on women within art institutions of the 19th century. So this information is from that source. A Shining Thread of Hope, The History of Black Women in America. Here we go. By the 1880s, let me start again. By the 1880s, the first African Americans were being admitted to art schools. Women were still not allowed to see nude people. They were drawing from statues. And African American women found that whatever small concessions were made for black men or white women were still not being made for them. Contrasting greatly from other art institutions, the League was reportedly the first major institute to allow women to do live drawings. So I haven't read about, this would be really good to learn about, the Art Students League of New York. It sounds like a school unto itself that did what it wanted and let people in on their talent and didn't discriminate against anyone on any other basis. So hooray for that, and I'm glad that we now know about it. I'm going to look it up on Wikipedia after this. Contrasting greatly from other... Okay, we already did that part. And at the League, Annie Walker was introduced to the atelier style based on the French model of art training. Annie worked alongside other art students in an unstructured workshop with the guidance of a master artist, unknowingly preparing for her future stay in Paris. The Art Students League became a stepping stone in Annie's journey, where she gathered knowledge and forged connections before ultimately pursuing higher education in another prominent New York City art institution, Cooper Union. So she got rejected from Corcoran because she was black. She went to the Art Students League of New York. Nice picture. And then for a couple years. And then she did Cooper Union. Cooper Union. Annie Walker began her studies at Cooper Union for the advancement of science and art in 1892. In the report of the Women's Art School, 1892, the principal at Cooper Union, Susan N. Carter, recorded her thoughts on the students in attendance and dedicated several passages to describing Annie's character as well as her artistic evolution. I would mention one which has much impressed me. A young colored woman came to the Cooper Union a few months ago. She was most ladylike and prepossessing in appearance. She brought with her a roll of drawings. So she wrote about her in the annual report. Yeah. And then we also read the longer version on Wikipedia. So, okay. Wait a minute. Annie Walker shared her experience of rejection in Washington, D.C., showing Carter the long letters from Frederick Douglass and others protesting against such an injustice. Carter recognized, as had Frederick Douglass, the disappointing irony of an art school in the capital making such a decision. In response, Carter opened the doors of her own office to Annie. Recognizing the wrong done to her race and her exclusion from a school in the capital city of our country, 27 years after our war was over, I felt that I was honoring New York City if I let her at once have a place in my own office, as classrooms were full, till a vacancy should occur in a drawing classroom. So I know that we are repeating what we read on Wikipedia, but it's a different article, so that's why I reread it. Carter noted Annie's progress. And we read this too before. This young girl is doing exceptionally well, and the kindness of her teacher and companions has helped to soothe her former grief. Cooper Union alumna and photojournalist Jean Mutasami Ash cites that aside from a drawing found in a catalog from an exhibition held at Howard University in 1967, the university had no other information on Annie Walker. This drawing, Seated Woman, 1896, is seen published alongside an article by the Washington Post, generously provided by Emory University from the James Porter Archives and the Rose Library. Despite remaining unnamed in the body of the article, it is implied that Annie's drawing was included in one of the traveling shows hosted by the American Federation of Arts in 1948. So posthumously, her work was shown and hosted by the American Federation of Arts in 1948. I've never heard of that, but that doesn't mean anything. It just means I've never heard of it. Let's see. So here are the paperwork from that, looks like. The model in the drawing is depicted in charcoal. Here's the artwork. Here's the art. I'm going to do that so I can read at the same time. The model in the drawing is depicted in charcoal against a muted canary cream. She has her hair drawn swiftly back, gently swooping over her ears, tucked all together in a small bun directly behind. Although there are no available reflections by Annie on her own work, her soft sensitivity and attention to detail are plainly seen. The solemn woman is gazing downward, her eyelids appearing heavy and nearly shut, a blouse peeking through her dress adds a titanium white highlight to the drawing. Her nose is pronounced and her lips slightly pursed above her small chin. The length of her facial features is accentuated by the long curve of her exposed forearm, sloped shoulder, and broad ballooning sleeve. Fashionable in the 1890s, the puff sleeve, known as the Lego mutton sleeve, was tailored to accommodate the freedom of movement and expression in a time when women began to regularly exercise and pursue employment. So that sleeve, that puffy sleeve, that was how it came to be in fashion. That's so interesting to me. Because, you know, you might wonder these things, but you might not even like verbalize them to yourself. At least I can speak for myself. And that answers that question. Famed Philadelphian realist painter of the Gross Clinic, Thomas Culperthay Eakins, was a frequent anatomy lecturer at the League and Cooper Union. Eakins confidently advocated for Paris as Annie's next step, inspired by a former student's fruitful experience there. He suggested that Annie could have more success if she relocated her artistic pursuits to Europe after graduation. So, like, Europe is going to be a better place for you because this country is behind, okay? Like, this country's racist is basically, I think, what he's saying. In Carter's annual student report for 1895, she revisits her evaluation of Annie, noting her achievements and promise. Okay, we read this already, so I'm going to skip it. Annie Walker graduated from Cooper Union in 1895. with her cumulative savings of $600, equivalent to approximately, at the writing of this article a few years ago, it was 21,370, which I think is I did the calculator thing. It's more like 24,000 now. And he set off for Paris. L'Académie Julienne, the sparkling promise of Paris. Despite Paris's long history of colonialism, the beautifully eloquent novelist James Baldwin referred to the City of Light as a refuge from American madness. Henry Asawa Tanner, who we're going to do in a little while, we're going to do him this month too, and his contemporary and student at L'Académie Julienne, could attest to this sentiment. A year after returning to Philadelphia, during which he painted the banjo lesson, Tanner made his way back to Paris, driven away by racial prejudice. Yeah. Following her graduation from Cooper Union, Annie went to L'Académie Julienne in September 1895, seeking artistic growth in painting and drawing, as described by Farrington. At Julien's, Walker was able to hone her skills and receive weekly criticism from established academic masters who made the rounds to the school's various ateliers. L'Académie Julienne was a private art atelier that welcomed women aspiring to receive instruction on human anatomy. The atelier had no entry requirements and was progressive, while also offering strict academic instruction in painting and sculpture. Okay. In contrast, I'm not sure what this is though. Okay. In 1868, Rodolphe Julien held the Academy's first workshops at 31 Rue du Dragon Street. So maybe that's their sign. That must be their sign outside. In contrast, École de Beaux-Arts, the most prestigious and renowned art institution in Paris, barred women entirely up until 1897. Additionally, École de Beaux-Arts had fixed requirements, including a complex language evaluation, making it very difficult for non-French natives to enter. Thus, L'Académie Julienne became the best option for foreigners as well as women, both of which include Annie Walker. L'Académie Julienne had three main priorities for its students: training for admission to École de Beaux-Arts, so it was like a prep school for École de Beaux-Arts, preparing for Prix de Rome, an annual scholarship awarded to study in Rome, and exhibiting at an annual salon. The Paris Salon is like the big one, right? To aid in the accompaniment of said goals, painter and founder Rodolphe Julien established an elaborate system of concours. Once a month, all the students competed together, and the examining professor were not told the name or the sex of the competitors till the results were declared. Often women had the best of it in these trials. Interesting! Since women were not accepted at École de Beaux-Arts, nor permitted to enter the Prix de Rome, they were limited to the Academy's third goal: exhibition at the Salon. With the guidance of the Académie, Annie Walker became one of the students chosen to display at the Paris Salon of 1896. Annie Walker's name appears listed in the Paris Salon catalog under drawings. Nice. The drawing chosen, titled La Persienne, is a pastel portrait of a woman in somber late Victorian attire against a muted gray background, as portrayed by art historian Tritobia Hayes Benjamin. And this is the painting, or the pastel painting. Pastel drawing. 38 inches by 24. That's big. 2 feet by 3 feet 2 inches. There is a keen awareness and sharp documentation of women's fashion in Annie Walker's delicately stoic drawing. Poised elegantly in deep indigo garb, the model's face is partially hidden, her neck fully concealed by her dress. Her fine wispy hair is arranged. Oh, we don't need to read all this, right? All right, women's hats in the 1890s were often wide and heavily trimmed with tall, upwardly curling feathers, ribbons, and flowers. This particular hat, with a single upright feather, is called a toque, a hat without a brim, worn perched at the top of the head. The woman holds a steady gaze, and amid Her luminescent skin are peach pink lips, contrasting greatly with the blackness of the feathery mass draped over her arm. There she is. Okay. All right. Yeah, let's do this. I think we're close to ending here. We're on to wifely duties, okay, pretty soon. After her stay in Paris, Annie proceeded to spend a second year abroad during her grand tour, visiting Switzerland, England, and Italy. This sounds like a ball. I'm sure her husband was at home. So here we are. Wifely duties, right? Let's do it. Annie Walker did not remain in Europe as Eakins had advised. Instead, in December 1896, Annie returned to Washington, D.C., and resumed her position beside her spouse, Thomas Walker. For the following 2 years, Annie attempted to strike a balance between working diligently toward perfecting her artistry and carrying out responsibilities as the wife of a successful lawyer. The third and last of Annie Walker's documented works is Studies of a Man in 16th Century Dress. Date unclear, circa 1903. Once more, we see Annie's fascination with dress. Okay, this is good to read because we don't have any information on this painting. And I'm just like, what is the context of this? In this watercolor painting, reminiscent of spring with its warm yet brilliant colors, an older bearded man sits pensively on a wood chair. Hold on, I'm going to zoom this up for you so you can see it better. Let's do that. Oh wait, my little head's in the way. I'm going to move myself out of the picture for a minute so you can see his. Hold on a second. We're getting there. Let's do that. And I'm going to move my head. And then we're going to make this bigger. In this watercolor painting, reminiscent of spring with its warm yet brilliant colors, an older, bearded man sits pensively on a wood chair, left leg extended, displaying the red stripes across his thighs, ruffles around his wrists and neck, legs covered in hose of a rosy maroon with a soft bonnet and duckbill shoes. In Susan N. Carter's last report, I'm back. There we go. In Susan N. Carter's last report regarding Annie Walker, Carter mentions Annie's plans following her studies in Paris. She proposes to open a studio for portrait painting. Here there is a glimmer of a dream, but being an artist was often incompatible with fulfilling the role of a wife. Perpetually stuck in a loop of domestic tasks, the work performed by a woman is never done. Annie Walker eventually stopped painting altogether. Her struggle to maintain both roles as wife and artist proved too much. Consumed by household chores and hosting functions for her husband's affluent connections, Annie's health declined, leaving her depleted with no energy to dedicate towards achieving her creative purpose. Walker suffered a nervous breakdown and never again engaged in artistic pursuits, remaining a homebound invalid until her death. In her essay, Alice Walker recounts the story of Phyllis Wheatley, a young girl, both poet and slave, with a similar fate to that of Annie E. A. Walker. Yet, because she did try to use her gift for poetry in a world that made her a slave, she was so thwarted and hindered, burdened not only with the need to express her gift, but also with a penniless, friendless freedom, quote unquote, and several small children. She lost her health, suffering from malnutrition and neglect, and who knows what mental agonies. These exterior obligations led to a turbulent stagnancy within, left with few, if any, outlets for self-expression. These black women artists, spiritually, in quotes, spiritually so intense, so deep, so unconscious, they themselves unaware of the richness they held, were forced to live an existence of suppressed desires and dormant dreams. Sad stuff. sad stuff. Tragic, actually. We're lucky we have what we have of her. But, you know, it's like she is like a cautionary tale in a way. Her life to not bury your goals and your dreams, you know, especially obviously for a black woman, because this was tragic for her. And I feel really bad that, like, I would hope, I don't know anything about her husband, but I'm just like, dude, you know, for somebody who had to fight so hard to get where he was, and he was one of the top lawyers, right? Like, support your wife. She's a brilliant artist. Like, what the heck? I don't understand. And they didn't, from what we know, they didn't have children. So it's not like that was something that she was putting her time into. You know what I mean? So there's a lot we don't know, you know? Don't you feel like there's like these huge holes in this story that you just like, what are we missing? We're missing a lot. I know we're missing a lot. I mean, I just worry that she, you know, had an abusive relationship and couldn't get out of it. And couldn't get out of it. A garden for the spirit. What is going on here? So what are the correct conditions to nurture creativity? Okay. Alice Walker alludes to an essay dedicated to addressing this quandary. A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, specifically focused on women who write fiction. Woolf's proposition can be applied to any woman with artistic ambitions. A woman must have money and a room of her own. Here is the quote. Like a spider's web attached ever so lightly, these webs are not spun in midair by incorporeal creatures, but are the work of suffering human beings and are attached to grossly material things, like health and money and the houses we live in. Annie Walker lacked space for contemplation, to absorb and bask in her surroundings, to let her mind and spirit roam free, much like the yin nature of soil, its blackness cradling the seed, preparing for what is to come. Every one of us hopes to create our own space where we can bloom and thrive, and in turn create a garden so brilliant with colors, so original in its design, so magnificent with life and creativity. Alas, Annie was unable to fully blossom, her growth stunted by the frost of domesticity. At age 73, this is such a great piece. Props to Vanessa, because this is such a great piece. At age 73, Annie Anderson Walker died on June 9th, 1929, and was buried in Harmony Cemetery in Washington, D.C. Later relocated to National Harmony Memorial Park in Maryland in 1960. Her obituary, published in the Evening Star, summarized her artistic accomplishments, including her recognition in Paris and years of teaching. And then the end of the article says, and so our mothers and grandmothers have, more often than not anonymously, handed on the creative spark, the seed of the flower they themselves never hoped to see, or like a sealed letter that they could not plainly read. Oh, wow. Okay. This is like dark, right? This is dark stuff. So I am interested actually in drawing this. I'm interested in drawing this obituary. That's what I'm gonna draw. I'm back. Hey, we're gonna do her first school because I thought about it for a couple minutes
I thought about it after I just did that, and I'm like, I thought about doing the obit, and I'm like, no, that's not what I want to do. Yeah, I do feel like the end of her life. Okay, hold on. Hi, I'm back. It gets me a little verklempt. It's a cautionary tale. It's sad. There was a little bit of a potentially sweaty eyeballs in the reading. I don't know. I hope that it wasn't obvious. I think I wanna honor her in a positive way, and I feel like I feel like it's important for us to remember and to know that, like, you have to be true to yourself to be happy. And I feel terrible that she felt so trapped, that she must have had just such a hard life in her marriage, you know? And that just is devastating that she went through that. And that she got to live her dream as an artist and then couldn't. And that is really, really, really tough to swallow, you know? It's tough to swallow. And I think that when I get upset like this about some of these biographies, you know, there's like an inordinate amount of biographies that just end sadly that I've been reading. And that's life, right? Okay. I guess that's life, because that is what we... Oop, sorry. Dropped you. Dropped me. Dropped my potential, like, chat thing. Yeah. It's just very, very, very hard to swallow. I'm going to pour some ink out so we can have some juicy ink, because I'm done with this lack of juicy ink. I don't know what's going on with my pen. I don't know what's going on with this pen, because I just bought this, and why? Where's the juice, baby? Where's the juice? Why? Why can I not get juice out of this? I'm squeezing. I'm doing everything they tell you to do. I know how to use this. Why are you not juicy, pen? Where? Why? What? What is it? Let me see. Let's use the super juice pen that I did. So this pen is so darn juicy. I hacked this. I filled this chamber. With ink. This pen is gonna leak everywhere. And I kind of don't care, because I want some juice in my pen. But what I will do is pour out some ink into a separate container and dip, if I need to do that with my brand new super dry pen. So I'm gonna put this here just in case I do that. And yeah, I'm just trying to get in the... That's not helpful. Sorry guys, hold on. Hold on a minute. There we go. Is that better? Okay. Hopefully that's good. Okay, I'm just trying to see. Put that down there. Just trying to see what you see, so I can see if If you guys can see everything okay here. Okay. All right, let's do it. Let's use this juicy pen. I love a juicy pen. See, I knew this was a good idea. Now it's going to start leaking everywhere, but I'm just going to say this was a good idea because it's nice and juicy. Okay. I'm going to just make some little markers for myself here. So I know where I'm placing things. And I'm going to turn the mic off, but I'm happy to turn it back on if there's any chat. Okay, I'm calling it. Calling it done. Here we are. Here is our final, right here. The Art Students League of New York in the original location. This is a tribute to Annie Walker. I think I might write that at the bottom if I have room. Oh, whoops, I have my volume. Okay, I think that's better. I would like to add that someplace. Where am I going to add it? Where are we going to put that? Okay. I know what I'm going to do. I got an idea. But how do I want to write it? And what do I want to write it with? A tribute. A tribute. Let's do it like this. This is getting creative, right? Let's get creative. A tribute to Annie Uno Momento. Oh, okay. Tribute to Annie Walker. All right, now that's done. I'm going to bump it up a little bit. Hold on. I'm going to bring you down so you can see what I'm doing. And now I'm just going to move my mic out of the way. I just want to make this a little, I got to marry it to the rest of the art for one thing. See, sometimes you want to add a bunch of stuff in after you do a bunch of other stuff. That's okay. Just make it work, right? I'm making it work right now. This is all about making it work. I want it to look like it belongs here. Because it does belong here, but I want to make it look like it lives in the same universe, if you know what I'm saying. My head might even be in the screen right now. That's how close to this art I'm getting. That's how close to this art I'm getting. Hold on, I'm actually going to move my coffee cup out of the way, because I want to bring you down a little closer. Like that, like that. Okay. Almost done. Ooh. Your brush tip is just not ideal for this. My brush tip, I should say. Probably not ideal, but you know what? It's like a part of the world here. It's a part of this art world, so I just really wanted to keep it in the family, you know? Keep it in the fam. and make it work. And I like how it's working, actually. I could go in and do a little dab of a white cartoonist ink, Zig cartoonist ink, just to increase the readability a little bit. Maybe I'll do that after. I'm not sure if I will or not. I know I'm gonna make this E a little different. Okay, well that just changed things. Okay. All right, I think I need to fix that, but I'm gonna fix it off screen because I'm gonna have to wait for that cartoonist ink to dry. So this is what we got. This is it. This is it. This is it. And this is a tribute to Annie Walker, who was the first American black woman on record to graduate from an art university, and she went to Cooper Union. Thanks, Cooper Union, for being brave back in the day when there was so much over racism that Corcoran School of Art disallowed her to go after she was accepted to the school. Annie, we remember you and we honor you. And I hope you guys had a good time today. And I'll be back tomorrow. But I'm just letting you know ahead of time, I have to go and get some shots that are going to put me out of commission, I think, for like a day. And I need to do it soon. So there's going to be a day soon. Like, there's going to be a day probably in the next few days that I have to, that I'm going to have to postpone a day. So where I'm going to have to cancel a day and then do the artist on another day. Just letting you know ahead of time. So I'm not sure when that's going to be. It might be Saturday, it might be Sunday, it might be Monday, I'm not sure. But there will be one day. It depends on when I go and get my shots, which I really need to do. So, all right. I will see you tomorrow, most likely, because I don't think it's going to be tomorrow. Okay? All right. Have a great day. Bye.